The girls tried to extract Mel with the subtlety of a parade. Alice crooned into his lap like a lounge act's cautionary tale. "I've had my eye on you," she lied beautifully. Shorty's hand found the wire. The word bugged vibrated through the table like a tuning fork. The floor was suddenly made of trap doors. A goon with imagination tossed the women into a meat locker cold air like a slap of thermostat labeled in what could only be irony beads from Vera's antique bag popping loose in a breadcrumb trail of glamour. Inside the white glare, they bickered to keep from freezing. Jolene's fingernails, Alice's plans, Vera's beads, each a kind of hope. "We're free," they shouted when the ropes came loose. "We're trapped," they corrected when the door held. Someone flipped the wrong switch. An avalanche of beef or destiny shifted on the hook. "We are going to die," Jolene declared, then apologized to the pot roast. And then the door opened. 3. The cavalry wears a badge and follows beads. Elliot Cheeks, flushed from the chase, appeared with a squad of cops. And an explanation almost too tidy, they had followed the trail of Vera's beads from bar to freezer breadcrumbs for a modern fairy tale. Shorty and his crew were ridiculously arrested in a garage down the block while debating capital of Nebraska during Trivial Pursuit Lincoln. It's always Lincoln. Mel guessed Alaska, which tracks. The transmitter was retrieved from Mel's unfortunate silhouette. The marked money had not changed hands. Elliot's relief was audible. The girls stumbled into the warmth of the street. "That was my reward," Mel sighed, only half kidding. "That was your life," Alice said, not kidding at all. She hugged Vera, whose teeth were still clacking a Morse code of adrenaline, and Jolene, who swore she'd never date a man named after a place in a cattle chart. They went back to the diner and made coffee so strong it could do paperwork. 4 post-mortem on ice. "What did we learn?" Alice asked, pouring around for the survivors. "Don't sit in laps," Jolene said. "Don't dress like a trench coat in Phoenix," Vera added. "Don't judge a shorty by his height," Mel concluded, "unless you're sure he's shorty." Outside, Phoenix leaned into its night, warm and foolish. Inside, every table had a story. 3 women who couldn't stay put. 1 man who couldn't resist a reward. 1 cop who could admit being lucky, and a city that still made room for absurdity as civic glue. Part 3, The Boys' Alternative and the Man Who Judged Covers, is approximately equal to excerpted novel Chapter 1, Ampere Festival of Arts and Opinion. The Phoenix Performing Arts Festival was the sort of neighborhood scheme that convinces grocers to host poets and salons to stage opera. Mel called it stupid until someone mentioned publicity and Councilman Barnett, at which point he became a patron of the arts with the zeal of a man who sees headlines and hamburgers mating. The only act left bad's the Boys' Alternative Dance Symposium. Break dancers. Mel squinted. Hoodlums, he decided, premised entirely on wardrobe. Mel Alice said, "You can't judge a book by its cover." "He's never opened a book," Jolene murmured. The Bad's kids arrived in the sort of outfits that terrified people who iron berets change the swagger of athletes in a sport gravity doesn't like. Mel tried to throw them out before they'd ordered a soda. Elliot, off duty and hungry, declined to arrest anyone for dressing like an MTV fever dream. They left. Television crews packed up. Councilman Barnett checked his watch and mentioned a kazoo band at a mortuary. The festival was devolving into a joke you had to be there to explain. "Go get 'em," Alice said. "They'll break dance on my face," Mel said. "Fine," Alice said. "Make sure they do it on the side that doesn't show." To Hudson and 3rd. Hudson and 3rd has a reputation. Elliot claimed it was not that bad if you discount muggers, ice pick killers, and chainsaw maniacs. Mel wore a coat of borrowed cool and followed Danny the Doofus, a childhood classmate of the dancers who believed nostalgia counted as currency. The kids did remember Danny, the way wrestlers remember a folding chair. After a ritual insult exchange that doubled as community theater, Mel apologized. He said the words, "Men like him save for emergencies, I was wrong." He meant it. The boys looked at each other the way troops do when they smell sincerity. "We've danced in alleys," their leader shrugged. "We can dance in a dump." Mel beamed. "I like these kids," he confessed on the way back. "They're the baddest." "Words evolve," Alice said, patting his arm. 3. Vera Boogaloo and the Save. Back at the diner, Councilman Barnett hovered the television crew, yawned, and the crowd was a cough away from gone. In a move born of both terror and love, Alice threw Vera onto the jukebox and announced Miss Vera Boogaloo Novak. Vera tried. Of course she did. Sometimes courage looks like a Pepsi commercial remembered wrong. The audience winced in unison. Vera bowed like a tulip in wind. Then the bads arrived. The room changed temperature. Shoes squeaked. Bodies became geometry. Diners forgot to chew. When the boys finished, the sound that followed was bigger than applause. It was agreement. Cameras rolled. Councilman Barnett said the words, "Politicians set alarms for inspiration to young people, minorities, and dancers everywhere." For once, it wasn't just a line. After the boys ate burgers on the house, trusting grease more than praise, Mel leaned across the counter. "You ever need a place to practice?" he said. "We got floors." "Floors are good," their leader said. "So are second chances." Mel posted a sign above the register, "Don't judge a book by its cover or a kid by his jacket." Underneath someone, probably Vera, taped a library card. Part 4. Truly Plus One Day is approximately equal to excerpted novel, Chapter 1, Paper Jaywalking, and a cop named Conroy. The first wedding anniversary is paper. Alice gave Vera a paperweight heavy enough to anchor a bad day. Jolene promised to buy something at lunch she didn't. Elliot and Vera planned to recreate their first meeting she'd jaywalk at 9:15 a.m. He'd arrest her. They'd giggle through vows at dinner and ask the violinist to play their song. At 9:15, a different cop, Officer Conroy, brand new, proud, convinced that law is a straight line, ticketed Vera. He took a photo for his mom. Joy left the scene. Comedy entered with a badge. At 1:30, it happened again. Jolene attempted compassion lawyering and failed spectacularly when she mentioned how one thinks of a cop after you've seen him in his underwear. Do not try this at home or in public. Vera was arrested, fingerprinted, processed by a sergeant named Stretch, who remembered Mel from a money dispute and demanded the $100 Mel owed him immediately. "And I call your cooking a mugging." Mel grumbled, paying. Elliot arrived late and mortified. He'd been held up at the bank, which was funny until everyone realized he meant the line, not the robbery. Charges dropped. Love dented. The day sagged like a balloon under a ceiling fan. And to the song you promised to remember. Elliot promised a romantic dinner and the same song from their first date. Unfortunately, his brain kept serving up the wrong tunes. "Love is a many-splendored thing," he guessed at the counter. Try "I Love a Parade," Mel deadpanned. The staff assembled a medley of failure. "What Now, My Love, the Man I Love," a twilight ballad that made the fried grease feel suddenly like candlelight. "Not it," Elliot said, panic, rising like poorly whipped cream. But it had love in the title. "That narrows it," Alice said, elbows on Formica, an indulgent aunt to two people she wanted to protect from their own sincerity. Vera overheard just enough to be hurt, not enough to be hopeful. When Elliot begged for grace, she gave it because that's what people do when they mean us more than me. She went to wash the ink from her hands. Elliot stared after her like a man studying the exit that leads back in. 3. Skywriting and bums who sing. Sometimes the grand gesture works because it's unnecessary. Elliot emptied his wallet, his pride, and the precinct's supply closet. The sky above the diner bloomed with letters. Elliot loves Vera wobbling a little in the heat. A bouquet arrived. A pair of singing bums, departmental euphemism, civically repurposed crooners tripped the last wire in Vera's heart and sang the thing Elliot had promised to remember until the day he died. "I love you truly." Plus one day, as Elliot added, because love deserves rounding errors in its favor. Vera stepped into his arms. Jolene wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Mel pretended to be allergic to music. Alice poured coffee for the pilot who'd looped the V and the E and thought, "This is what survival looks like, messy promises redeemed with overkill." Or 4, Coda Ink Lawn and the long joke of marriage. They made it to dinner late and happy. Later that week, Elliot mowed the lawn at 5 a.m., still buzzing from stakeout coffee and victory. Vera watched from the window and laughed until she had to sit down. Marriage, she decided, was learning to like the parts of your life that no one else would write down. At the diner, Earl abandoned his diet for pancakes. Jolene explored the concept of gifts. Paper fine. I have lipstick receipts. Mel, after a day of disasters, wiped his hands and admitted he liked being around people who tried too hard. Alice closed, flipped the O-Pen sign to see you, and restacked the cups. Outside, Phoenix glowed. Inside, they stayed an extra minute for no reason other than the feeling that good days ought to be escorted to the door.